Well, it has finally happened. FlutterFlow has just released what I feel is one of the most sought after feature, at least in my book. And so in today's video, I'm going to be telling you exactly what that feature is. And I'm also going to be showing you some really interesting creative ways that you can leverage this feature. Now, before we get started, as always, all the apps and all the resources that I discuss on this channel, you can learn more about them and get access to them as well via our amazing Patreon community. And if you're still not a member of our amazing, rapidly growing, awesome Patreon community, then you can learn more about it and perhaps become a member via the link in the description below the video. Now, the feature that FlutterFlow has unleashed upon the world is drag and drop functionality. And this is a feature that I've wanted pretty much since I started using FlutterFlow. It's an amazing feature, and it really opens up a lot of possibilities out there, right? And I'm sure after you finish watching the video, you are going to be implementing this feature regardless whether this is an app that you're working on right now or an app that you're planning to build in the future. Now, let's first talk about how this functionality works. So I'm going to go ahead and run this app that I built that showcases some interesting use cases so that I can better show you how you can make use of this feature. Now, when it comes to drag and drop functionality in FlutterFlow, there are three things that I want you guys to think about because this feature works with three components, okay? The first component is the node that is draggable. And so this is a widget that you can drag. Obviously, not all widgets are draggable and they should not be draggable. But anytime you want to make something draggable, you use a draggable widget, okay? The second thing that I want you guys to understand is that there are widgets that can't become drag targets, okay? So these are widgets that accept other widgets, okay? And the third thing that I want you guys to know is when you are dragging a widget, that widget that's being dragged is storing some piece of information, and this piece of information can be accessed while this widget is being dragged to figure out, what does it have and how can we make use of it to tell the user something or change the UI of the app. And so in this little demo here, we have a draggable widget. Okay, so this is a draggable. And what this means is that you can drag it. Now, where can you drag it? Well, this depends on which of your widgets are drag targets. Okay, so for instance, I can drag it here. You see this whole thing, this orange container is a drag target, okay? I can't drag it here. I can't drag it here. Okay, I can't really drag it there. The only places that I can drag it are the drag targets. Now, another important thing that you guys need to understand is that while you're dragging it, this thing is sending events. And so when you hover over a drag target, like I'm doing in this case right now, this kind of, brownish kind of orange container, it's understanding that I'm hovering over. Now, I haven't dropped it yet. I'm simply hovering over. And so while I'm hovering over, it has an entered event, as you can see just above this. Now, when we leave it without dragging, we get an exit event. But if we go back and we drop it, we get a drop event. And so not only do you have three things that you need to be aware of, and these are drag targets, draggables, as well as the data that's being passed, you also have various events. Okay, so when you understand all of that, that's pretty much 50% of the battle. Everything else is going to be a lot easier to understand. So with this simple example here, you can kind of see what's happening. We have a draggable here, we have a drag target here, and we have the events being displayed here. So as I'm dragging it, I'm here entered, it's sending this enter event because I have entered the drag target. If I leave, I have exited. And if I drop it here, well, I have dropped it. Okay. So now that you kind of understand how this drag and drop functionality is implemented in FlutterFlow, everything else is going to make a lot more sense. Now, before I show you some interesting use cases and different things that you can do, let's jump back into FlutterFlow And let me quickly show you how this is implemented. Okay, so here we are back in FlutterFlow. This is the page that you were just looking at. And this is actually really simple to implement. So this drag me here, this is a simple text widget. But the main difference here is that it's a child of draggable. Okay, so these are the two new widgets that you now have access to in order to build this drag and drop functionality. So this draggable here, if I click on it, I can scroll down and I can set properties, right? I can say, what exactly does it contain, right? What exactly is going to be in this draggable so that we can figure out, what data it's trying to pass. Because unlike in this example, right, when you're building an app, as you're going to be seeing in just a little bit, anytime you drag a draggable, you're going to be passing some important piece of data, as you're going to see in some of these future demos in just a couple of minutes. And so with this draggable, you need a child, okay? You cannot have a draggable without a child. If I delete this text, you're probably going to get an error, right? Because you need something to have to be in there, right? To be as a child. But we are specifying the properties. And in this case, this is a string and the value is just hey, okay? Now, the next thing that I want to show you is this drag target. Okay, so this drag target here, all of its children, right? Any of its children become automatically widgets that can receive draggables. Okay, so I did not make this a drag target. I did not make this a drag target, but I made this a drag target. Okay, so this container with a text inside, if I remove this widget, it's just a regular container with a text. But because the parent is a drag target, which means that it can accept draggables. Okay. Now there's another thing that you guys need to understand is that if we click on drag target here and we open its actions here, you can see that it has various callbacks, right? And remember, callbacks are a way for FlutterFlow to notify you, the developer, notify your app that something is happening, right? Callbacks are awesome. The more callbacks we have, the more callbacks that each individual widget has, the more things that we can do, the more power that we have as developers when it comes to building apps with FlutterFlow, right? So here we have 3 callbacks, and this is really nice because it gives us additional information as to what's happening so that we can react appropriately. So we have 3 callbacks here: undrag accept, undrag enter, and then drag exit. Okay, so in this case, I'm just updating this page state variable, right? So all I have here is a page state variable called drag status. And in this drag target, all I'm doing is I'm just saying, okay, if we have accepted, just set that page state variable to drop. If we have entered, just set it to entered. And if we have exited, just set it to exited. And when it sets it, remember, this is a page state variable, so it's going to rebuild the page, and you're going to be seeing this, right? So as you're using it, you're seeing this change in real time because we're updating this variable and we're automatically rebuilding this widget, okay? And that is why you're seeing this variable, this widget really kind of change in real time, okay? And so that is how you implement and leverage this drag and drop functionality in your apps. Now, at this point, you may be asking, this is nice and all, but can you show us some kind of real world practical examples that I can leverage, that I can kind of piggy bank off and kind of use in order to build amazing apps? Well, I created 3 powerful and practical examples that you can leverage to make your apps better, more robust, and more user-friendly, okay? So let's jump back into the app. And the first example that I want to show you is actually a Trello type app, okay? So if you're not familiar with a Trello app, you might be familiar with a Kanban board, right? And this is a type of app where you have different columns and you have various tasks or kind of things that need to be done, or different projects that when you move to different columns, you're basically representing that specific task has entered a new stage. And if you recall, some videos back, I showed you a custom widget that allows you to do it. Well, you no longer need a custom widget. You can build it all yourself right inside of FlutterFlow. And so we have here 3 columns, and in each column we have a name. So we have the to do. There are three items here. doing has 0 items, and then done has 0 items. So what I can do is I can drag and drop an item and it will automatically update. So now to do has 2 items, doing has 1. I can take this, put it in here, and now done has 1. I can do this, I can do this, I can drag all of them here. And now all 3 of these tasks are completed, and similarly I can move them back. Okay. And all of this is built using this built-in functionality. We're not using any third-party widgets or any custom code or anything like that. This is all built with FlutterFlow. And so if we jump back, I can show you how we have done this. Okay, so the way this works in this case, and obviously there's lots of ways of building it, is I have 3 lists. I have the to-do list, which are the items in the first list, then I have the doing list, and then I have the done list. And so what happens here is we just have a simple setup, but anytime that I want to be able to drag and drop a specific item into a specific place, I wrapped it with a drag target. Okay, so all of this whole container, right? This container here, we have a column, and then we have a container. Well, the container was wrapped with this drag target. And so that means I can drag any of the draggables that I might have defined throughout my app inside this container. Okay, and this is exactly what's happening. We have a drag target and container. Then we have a list view, and inside the list view, we have the actual items. But instead of just displaying the actual items, I have each item wrapped with a draggable. Okay, and so each individual item is a draggable, which means I can drag and drop it. And guess what? I can drag and drop it anywhere in any of these containers because these containers are all drag targets. Okay. And so as you can see, we have a row and we have 3 columns representing the 3 different lists, right? So that's how we are formatting it. And it's pretty much the same elements, right? It's all the same elements in each of these 3 columns. Okay. And so if we click on the list view, you can see this is to-do list. This is another list view here. This is doing list. And then the last list view is a done list. Now, an important element of this flow here is what happens when items are dragged and dropped in a specific column or in a specific list. And this happens here. So if we select this drag target, we open it up. We have a bunch of actions here, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm updating app state. And I'm basically moving one item to another list, depending on where it came from, okay? Now, these items here, these are not, regular items, right? So if you take a look at our list here, if we come over here to our list, you can see that these lists are of a special drag item type. And if we come over here, we have this drag item type. And this is a data type, right, that contains these 2 fields here. We have the actual data. And these are the actual names of the tasks. So like, do homework, call mom, buy groceries. That text is this data. And then I also have a source so that I can figure out where that item came from, so that I can remove it from that list and put it into a new list. And that is exactly what I'm doing here, right? So if we come over here in this drag target, first I am adding it to a new list, and then I am removing it from the old list based on the source. And then at the end, I'm updating the source. I'm saying that, update the source, these fields here, I'm saying update the source to the new list, depending on where we are. Okay. And that is why you're able to drag and drop it, and it removes it here and it adds it here, because adding is easy. Removing, you need to figure out where it came from, right? You need to figure out where it came from, and that is in the source. Okay. So really, really nice flow, and it works flawlessly and really easy to build. Like, I couldn't actually believe that I could essentially build a whole Trello mini app in like 30 minutes. Okay, so, if you guys are looking to do some kind of a Trello project management app, this is so easy to do. And obviously, if you're a member of our amazing Patreon community, you're going to get access to this entire app. You'll be able to view, clone it, do whatever you want with it, learn from it, and leverage into this functionality with your own apps. All right. So now that you've seen that, let me show you another really, really nice use case. So if we jump over here you can build really cool quizzes or games with this functionality. So here it says, what's the capital of Spain? And we have a bunch of options here. And so the idea is I can drag and drop it, right? So if I drag it here, nothing happens. If I drag it here, nothing happens. Drag it here, nothing happens. But if I drag it here, guess what? It changes the color, Madrid, right? So if I let go, it says correct. And so if I drag that again, and I drag it on this box, onto this box here, it says incorrect. Okay, so that is another little twist of, this functionality that you can kind of use in order to build cool games, cool quizzes, add some interaction into your apps, create a really cool user experience. And maybe, at the bottom here, or maybe here, you can say drag and drop the question onto an expected answer, onto a box that you think is the correct answer. Okay, so if I drag it here, we have it correctly set. So how is this implemented? Well, let me show you how this is done. We have a question here, just a regular question. And guess what? This is a draggable, right? So this is a child of draggable. And if you select draggable, we have a value, right? So a draggable, when you drag it, it contains a piece of information. It can contain any kind of information, right? So if you click here, you can set it to anything that you want. In this case, I'm just passing a string called Madrid, which is the answer, right? So this question has an answer, and the user cannot see the answer because this is part of the app. But it's important to kind of set it here because we can easily compare it here, okay? And so that is all for draggable. Now, a lot of kind of the logic, a lot of the magic happens in this grid view, right? So we have this grid view here, and this is just a list of answers, right? This is just app state. If we come back to our app state, we have these answers here. And these are essentially a list of possible answers, a list of various country capitals, okay? And the purpose is to simply display it here. And this allows us to display, to kind of feed this grid view with a bunch of capitals. Now, the heart of the algorithm, right? The heart of the app is always, in most of the cases, going to be inside this drag target, because this gives you that nice interaction with the user, right? Creates that nice effect, right? And so this drag target, if we open it up, this is kind of what it's doing, right? So it's looking at answered correct, right? So if the answer is correct, it shows this snack bar correct. If the answer is not correct, it sets it to incorrect. Now, how is answer correct actually set? Well, it happens here on drag enter and then drag exit. So if we go into undrag enter, we are updating our page state. We are setting answer correct depending on where the user is dragging it to, right? So what we're saying is drag data equal to actually the answer? Because remember, on drag data, we have the answer. So as the user is dragging it to various widgets, various containers, we're automatically checking in real time whether they dragged it to the correct answer. And based on that, we set this answer correct. And then we also have another page state variable called active cell, right? We need to know which cell they're dragging it to, okay? And this is the simple index and list, right? So this is the cell, we just get its index. And we need to know its index so that we can do other things, as you were gonna see. And on this undrag exit, we set active cell to -1, which means that there's no cell selected. Because if we leave one of the cells, we leave one of the drag targets, then there's no cell selected, and we need to make sure that active cell is set to -1. Now, what is active cell? Why is that important? Well, we need the active cell because we need to figure out which one of these cells do we need to change its appearance, right? Because remember, in this flow, based on what's happening, we're changing its appearance, right? That's really the purpose, right? To make it a little bit more interactive, right? So you see it changes its appearance, okay? So if you come over here, if you select the container here and you scroll down, we have the fill color, and here we have two conditions, okay? We are checking whether, the cell in question is the one that we want, is the one that the user is going to, right? This is the index and list and the active cell. It's equal to the active cell. And then if it's also correct, right? So it's not enough for us to drag it, right? They also need to be correct. The answer also need to be correct, because if I wasn't checking whether the answer is actually correct, then this cell would light up. We don't want it to light up. We only want it to light up if it's also correct and we're hovering over, right? And that is exactly what these two checks are doing. This is an AND condition because we want both of these conditions to be true. And once they're true, we change the color to this green color. Otherwise, we just keep it as white. And we also, have that cool effect where once they drop it, once they finally dropped it, we have that snack bar, right? So if we open this up and drag accept, this is really simple. If answer is correct, then correct. If answer is not correct, incorrect. And the answer is set before they've dropped it, right? So as they're hovering over the specific items, answer correct variable is being set to either true or false, depending on if the target node, if the drag target is actually the right one, if it matches up, if the drag target matches up with the draggable. Right. This is the kind of pattern that you're probably going to be using over and over and over again if you're looking for this kind of app experience. So another really cool idea, and I feel that a lot of you are going to be definitely interested in using something like this in your future apps, or adding it as a functionality to an app that you may be working on right now. Last but not least, I want to show you another awesome use case. And this is in apps that need some kind of appointment management, some kind of like calendar functionality, stuff like that. So I'm not using any calendar widget. This is all done from scratch. I'm simply listing the days starting from today, 7 days in the future. So it's basically listing a week here, and we have 3 items here, okay? And so what you can do is you can drag and drop them. So I can drag this here, I can drag that there, I can drag all of these here if I want, drag them, and I can also reorder them if I want, so which is nice as well, right? So not only can I drag it from different dates, but I can also reorder them inside. Okay, so here I can drag this here. I've done this. Maybe I decided I'm gonna do this here, and it's all keeping track of which items are assigned for which days. And obviously you can take it further. You can create time slots. You can do like 8 to 5, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or whatever, and you can create various time slots if you want. But this should hopefully get you started, because this is really nice flow, and it's actually very easy to implement. And so if we jump back to FlutterFlow, this is our third demo here. And what we have here is actually a very simple setup. We have a wrap. I'm using a wrap here to kind of list the items, and this wrap is using a custom function called getDays, and all this custom function is doing is getting the days 7 days, for 7 days in advance. So starting from today until the next week, right? So Monday through Sunday, or Sunday through Saturday, right? We're getting 7 days, and we are getting a list of those 7 days in the future, right? And once we have that, we are displaying them here, but inside here we have a list view. And what does a list view have? Well, a list view is listing something called a time slot, okay? So what exactly is a time slot? Well, a time slot is just a name that I gave for different things, different to the items on a specific day, right? So if you go to our app state here, we have time slots, and time slots is basically a list of this drag item type, right, that I talked about before. This drag item type, what's nice about it is it has the data, right, which is the actual name of the task, but it also has the source, and you can assign that source to anything. You can assign it to a special day, a special slot, and a special column, a special status, anything, right? So if you come back here, what's cool about it is, right, so if we come to this app state, I have these defined, right? So I have work, and source is 0, which is that first date. In this case, this source represents the date, right? So 0 means the first day. Okay, so today, right? As we're listing the days. And so here I have call mom, and I have buy groceries, right? All 0, 0, 0. And so now the magic is in this list view, okay? Because what's happening here is we are using filter list items, and we are filtering them and we are displaying them depending on the source, right? So if I come over here, I'm saying source needs to be index and list. So if source is 0, they're going to be in that first day. If source is 1, they're going to be in the second day, right? In that, because it starts from 0, right? In computer science, all the counting starts from 0, not from 1, as is the case with us, right, with humans. And so what happening here is it's listing the days, but it's checking the source. And so it's looking at day 0, and it's listing all the items where source is 0, right? And what's cool about it is that once it has listed everything, right, in this case, they're going to be in this first date because all the sources are 0. Next, we have the drag target. Well, we have the draggable, right? These are the draggables, right? They have to be. But obviously, a lot of the magic is going to be in this drag target. So if you open up this drag target, we just have one thing, right? We don't have anything here. We don't have anything here. We just have undrag except, because what do we need to do when we finish dragging it, right? We need to change the source. We need to assign it to that special day, because if we don't, it's going to be messed up. All right. So if I move something from, let's say, Saturday to Sunday, or from Sunday to Monday, right? From like day 0 to day 1, I need to update the source, right? And this is exactly what it does, right? So we take this time slots, which is our app state variable here, a list of data, drag item types, and I'm doing an update item at index, right? And so here I have a custom function that essentially is a one-liner. It basically looks up a specific item in our app state and gets the index, right? Because we need to find that item in the app state, and we can do that via its index, right? We need to look it up. And so once we look it up, we are also, we're passing the list and we're passing the data, right? Because we need to figure out that data that's being dragged, right? We're dragging something and we need to figure out where it is in the app state, because we need to update it, right? And before we can update it, we need to locate it, right? And here we're updating the field. This is only going to be one field, the source. And this is index and list because, well, where is it, right? Because index and list represents various days, right? So in this case, this is day item, index and list, and our days are here, right? These are our days, right? So this is index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3. And so as a result, once you drag it from one day to another, it's updating the source. And the source represents the day. And as a result, it has this really nice kind of behavior. Now, you may be wondering about this reordering. Well, that is actually built in thanks to FlutterFlow. That is actually on a list view, right? So if you select the list view, scroll down, you can make it reorderable, right? So you can simply select here and you can reorder it automatically. This is actually part of the list view. It's built-in functionality. I wasn't sure if you guys are aware of it. If you're not, then this is great functionality, because with this setup, I can drag and drop it here, and I can also reorder it inside, right? I can reorder it inside, and depending on how I have it set up, this is going to be very, very flexible. And so this is really, really nice, and it's done really easily, right? Because look at this drag target here, right? We only have one action. There's just one action that does all of the magic. And so obviously by showing you these 3 practical examples, we're merely scratching the top of the surface. There's so many things that you can do, but the key here is to understand how it works, right? To kind of master it and to understand how, drag target interacts with a draggable and what kind of data they're passing around and how you can, interact all of that with app state, how you connect it here, connect it there. And obviously the best way to learn it, apart from rewatching this video, is by getting access to this app. And you will be able to do just that when you join our amazing Patreon community, because when you become a member, you're going to get access to this app, which means you can view and or clone it, and you can see exactly how I did everything, right? I mean, it's one thing to watch the video and understand that. That's really important as well. That's awesome. But in my personal experience, right, the best way to learn is via practice. That is how I learn, right? That has been my secret when it comes to kind of learning all of these technologies, right, in this kind of rapidly evolving world. And so when you get access to this app, you'll be able to kind of play around and kind of tinker with it. And not only that, you're going to get access to pretty much all the other apps that I have demonstrated on this channel. There's more than like 150 160 apps by now. They're all there. You can ask questions. You can interact with other members of our amazing, rapidly growing Patreon community and get support as well. And that's not all. When you join our amazing community, you're going to get access to more content such as Q&As, live streams, behind the scenes content, and our Patreon supported masterclass. And what exactly is our Patreon supported masterclass? Well, this is where I ask the community if they want more information, if they want some more knowledge about a specific concept, a tool, or an app, or pretty much anything else, and I go out and I record a comprehensive deep dive video covering that specific area. And so I do this regularly from time to time. I ask the community what they want to know more about, and they simply vote, and I go out and I create a video. I believe the next masterclass is going to be on push notifications, but that is still up in the air. And so if you want to participate in kind of shaping the future content on this channel, then definitely check out our amazing Patreon community and become a subscriber. And that is also a great way to support this channel and support my work. And so if all of this sounds like something that you might be interested in, then I really hope to see you inside.